In December 2024, a heavily stylized white wolf emerged from the shadows at the Game Awards, announcing a sequel to a video game that had been dormant for 18 years. That original game was Ōkami, released in 2006. Director Hideki Kamiya and his team at Capcom's Clover Studio built it as a highly anticipated auteur project, casting the player as a sun goddess racing to heal a cursed land. Upon launch, the critical reception was nearly flawless. Ōkami secured a 93 on Metacritic, took home IGN's overall Game of the Year, and secured 2 BAFTA awards for its artistic achievement and original score. Yet, within weeks of the game's North American release, Capcom announced the total closure of Clover Studio. The team was scattered, and Kamiya left the company. Curious, slightly baffled, how does a piece of media achieve perfect critical acclaim and win top industry awards, while simultaneously failing so spectacularly at the cash register that it puts its own creators out of a job? This chart compares Ōkami's near-perfect review scores against its dismal 2006 unit sales. While reviewers handed out 10s and A grades, the game moved barely 66,000 copies in Japan that year and only 200,000 in North America. The corporate math was ruthless. Capcom dissolved Clover Studio entirely to centralize their resources, forcing the departure of the specific visionaries who actually designed the game. To understand the anatomy of this commercial failure, we first have to dissect the specific engineering constraints that made Ōkami a masterpiece in the first place. Clover originally built their prototypes aiming for a photorealistic nature simulation. But they quickly hit a hard limit. The PlayStation 2's processor simply could not handle rendering a dense, realistic environment at a playable frame rate. They needed a workaround. Character designer Kenichiro Yoshimura experimented by drawing the protagonist wolf using a traditional Japanese inkwash technique known as sumi-e. By pivoting to this flat, cel-shaded art style, the team drastically reduced the memory processing required by the hardware. This logic diagram illustrates how that visual compromise directly birthed an interactive mechanic. Because the world was now rendered as a living painting, the developers gave the player a celestial brush to pause the action and literally paint solutions directly onto the screen, drawing slashes to attack enemies or circles to summon the sun. Ōkami's most celebrated innovation was actually a strict engineering fix for failing hardware, disguised as an aesthetic choice. With the visual style locked, Clover turned the game world into a living archive of classical Japanese folklore. The central spine of the narrative follows Amaterasu, the Shinto sun goddess, acting in the physical form of a white wolf to slay the 8-headed demon Yamata no Orochi. But the margins of the map are stuffed with secondary, standalone folktales. Players encounter Princess Kaguya from the 10th century tale of the bamboo cutter, and battle a sinister old couple pulled straight from the fable of the tongue-cut sparrow. When the map expands into the frozen northern region of Kamui, the game incorporates the animist beliefs of the Ainu, the indigenous people of northern Japan, layering their epic hero Okikurami into the story. The game successfully unified marginalized and ancient cultural history into a cohesive modern epic, effectively functioning as a playable museum. But prestige cannot overcome terrible market timing. Ōkami launched in the fall of 2006, the absolute twilight of the PlayStation 2 hardware generation. By the time the game hit store shelves, the entire gaming press and the consumer base were distracted, anticipating the imminent launch of next-generation hardware. Ōkami didn't fail due to a lack of quality. It failed because it was a product of the past, released at the exact moment the market demanded the future. This timeline maps Ōkami's refusal to die. Fueled by fan demand, Capcom sequentially ported the game to the Wii, the PlayStation 3, PC, Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch, with cumulative unit sales climbing steadily over 15 years. By June 2023, lifetime sales crossed 4 million copies, and the title secured a Guinness World Record for the most critically acclaimed video game starring an animal character. The game's influence bled outward, with its brush mechanics and inkwash aesthetics appearing in later industry titles like Disney's Epic Mickey and Capcom's own Street Fighter IV. Then, in 2024, Hideki Kamiya's non-compete clause from his previous job expired. He formed a new studio named Clover's, a direct nod to his former team, and convinced Capcom to finally fund a sequel. Hardware cycles and corporate balance sheets dictate the immediate market, but constraint-driven art, rooted in full cultural history, will always outlive the era that tried to bury it.